Asian Institute of Business and Science, we started our operations in 2018 as a Institute of post graduate studies, or like institute offering a lot of higher education programs that are accredited and recognized all over the world, mainly in the streams of business and life sciences. So since then, Asian Institute of Business and Science, or AIBS, has been the home for a lot of Sri Lankan students who are currently pursuing a very successful higher education, both in Sri Lanka as well as abroad. Apart from our academic programs, we had a lot of public events that we organized to help our Sri Lankan students to make the correct higher educational and career choices. So among those, if I named a few, we have an annual biomedical career day, and we have a program called Inspire, which helps you out molding your character and your leadership qualities. And then we had a lot of information sessions that we carried out in collaboration with a lot of our higher educational collaboratives or partners abroad. So it is not new to us to have this kind of events with students. But the event today is very important. Let me tell you why. So if I'm to remind you, a few years back, the word pandemic and uh, thousands of people dying within a day because of a disease, and also being unable to go out of house because of the fear of getting infected. So all these things were mere historical events, or things happen in science fiction for us, isn't it? But this unfortunate outbreak of COVID-19, which happened in December 2019, so this made all these unfortunate events a kind of a reality in our life. So thanks to the medical professionals and scientists who are fighting in the front line against this condition, we are kind of in like balancing the situation, if I may say. But what we call this new normal, it has affected us in a significant manner, because it includes things that are not very familiar to us: wearing a mask, maintaining social distancing, having minimal interactions with people, and also work from home. So all these things are pretty new, and that has somehow affected all of us. But if I told you that there is a single group of people who had almost their world upside down because of this situation, and if I say that it is teachers and students, I think you will agree with me, because the students and teachers, university or school, we are very much used to this normal classroom setting with a lot of interactions and a lot of activities and face-to-face conversations and all that. But the students and teachers both, we had to get adapted to these online platforms which has a minimum level of interactions, and also we had to deal with new technologies, network problems and everything, and also we all suffer from minimal interactions with people, that as teachers we find out that it's difficult to understand whether the student understood the concept or not, and students also find it difficult to lead their questions to the lecturers or teachers. So likewise, and from the student sense, they lose a lot of interactions with their friends, their extracurricular activities. So all these have led to a significant mental and physical health related issues. So we are working long hours, lacking our sleep, like have irregular eating patterns, all these things. So, as another unfortunate aspect of pandemic, we have reportedly high level of mental or psychological issues among people nowadays. So, as a result, countries all over the world, they are having various programs as governments or non-governmental level to help people out to come out of these situations that they are suffer from, these mental situations, especially like stress, depression, and especially addictions, screen addiction, and all that. So that is the condition in, say, generally all over the world. If we look at the condition at Sri Lanka, now in Sri Lanka, we all face these situations as the rest of the world. But the concept of mental well-being or being mentally balanced is not very well absorbed or not very widely spread in Sri Lankan population as we talk about it in the field of psychology, if I may say. And as a result, our teachers and our students are struggling a lot in managing the situation with all these newly challenges. So, as an educational institute, we thought now it is time for us to take an initiative to help our students and teachers in some way to manage this situation. So, that thought became fruitful in the form of this webinar. And we are so glad to have two very high profile resource persons with us today in our event who had joined hands with us in this venture. So now I would like to warmly welcome our two resource persons. We have Dr. Karen Thompson, who is the Associate Dean of the School of Health and Life Sciences, Glasgow Caledonian University, UK. Hi, ma'am. And we also have Ms. Rasini Bandara, a counseling psychologist, public speaker, and a personality development coach in a very, very well established psychology professional in Sri Lanka. So they are very much happy and they are ready to share their knowledge and their experiences about the field of psychology in various contexts, including clinical and academic, so that they will help out to manage our mental well-being during this time of crisis. So without any further ado, let's open our platform for our guest speakers. So as I promised, now I will explain you how the things happen. Initially there will be, we'll open the platform for our speakers and there will be a presentation or speech going on. And after each speech, there will be 10 minutes allocated for your questions or whatever the doubts that you have. So even after that, after all the speeches are over and everything, we will still have some time allocated to have a general discussion about what we had and how we need to clear our doubts and everything. That can be, we'll go in that way. And your meeting chat is open. Any questions that you have during the session, during the speakers are giving their presentations, you can type it in the meeting chat. After the presentations are over, and if you would like to raise your hand or anything and direct the question directly to the speaker also, you can raise your hand, then I will keep you on mute. Then you can directly talk to the speaker and get your idea presented to them. So that way we will go. After each presentation, there will be a time for questions and answers. Okay, so now I would like to invite our first guest speaker. That's Dr. Thompson. So if I am to introduce Dr. Thompson to you, she's a social scientist with a background of psychology, and she's currently the Associate Dean of School of Health and Life Sciences, Glasgow, Caledonian University, UK. So apart from being a senior lecturer in the Department of Psychology, Dr. Thompson had been the head of learning and teaching of the School of Life Sciences, and also Associated Dean of Learning, Teaching and Quality. Once again, the School of Health and Life Sciences. And Dr. Thompson had been involved in a number of transnational educational projects in Africa, Southeast Asia, and India. And also, she is holding a number of positions in the external boards. And during her doctorate studies in Stirling University, she has carried out a research to explore learning conceptions in a culturally diverse classrooms. So she has a lot of experience with Sri Lankans, and we are familiar to her. So today she will definitely give you an idea about what is psychology, which is what you really need to know. And she will also explain how psychology can help us in a time of crisis. So, Dr. Thompson, we are so honored to have you today, and the platform is all yours.
Thank you very much, Varuni. I'm just checking that everybody can see my screen and you can hear me speak.
Yeah, we can hear you, Karen.
Fantastic, excellent. Good evening, Colombo, or good afternoon from Glasgow, Scotland in the United Kingdom. It is a great pleasure to be here with you in Sri Lanka this evening. I've spent a lot of time in Sri Lanka and it has a very, very warm place in my heart. In fact, the first conversation I had about the global pandemic was sitting in a veranda at a party in Rajagaria in January 2020. There was some media reports about a new virus called coronavirus in Wuhan in China. We all sat and discussed and we wondered if it would be as serious as the SARS virus. Little did we know what was going to happen over the next 18 months. I left Colombo shortly after that in January 2020, and I'm very much looking forward to going back when international travel opens up again. So as my kind introduction from Bruni, I am Dr. Karen Thompson. My first degree was social science, where I majored in psychology. Majoring in psychology allowed me to join the British Psychological Society and call myself a psychologist. I then moved on and did my doctorate in education, where, as Varuni pointed out, I studied international education. I have a huge interest in international education, and I'm currently the Associate Dean for all international education in the School of Health and Life Sciences. So as my kind introduction from Rudy, I am Dr. Karen Thompson. I am my first... I'm going to talk to you today a bit about what psychology is. I think there is quite psychology is such a vast topic covering so many different domains, and I think the public's knowledge and understanding of psychology can be somewhat skewed. So what I'm going to do today is tell you a little bit about what psychology is, what psychologists do. I'm not too sure of my background of everybody, so I'm telling you things you know. Please bear with me. I will, of course, be speaking very much from a UK perspective. That is slightly different in US and Australia, and I'm sure slightly different in Sri Lanka. So most of what I'm saying today will be very much from a UK perspective. And then I'm also going to tell you a little bit about how a knowledge of psychology can help in a global crisis, and what in the UK psychology has been doing, or psychologists have been doing to help with the global pandemic. So what is psychology? Psychology is a scientific study of behavior and mental processes. Psychologists predominantly work with humans. There is such a thing as an animal psychologist, and some psychologists study animals to better understand human behavior, but generally psychology is the scientific study of human behavior and mental processes. It examines how people think, act, react, and interact. Psychology is concerned with all aspects of behaviours and the thoughts, feelings and motivations that underline such behaviour. And that quote is taken from the British Psychological Society. I I'm wondering if the audience know the difference between a psychiatrist, a counsellor, and a psychologist. A psychiatrist is a medical doctor who has done a postgraduate studies in psychiatry. So when a psychiatrist is addressing mental health, they're coming very much from a medical perspective because their first degree is medicine. You cannot be a psychiatrist until you have a medical degree in the United Kingdom. So all the psychiatrists' viewpoints on thought processes and human behaviour comes very much from a medical perspective. A counsellor is somebody who's involved in some form of talking therapy. In the United Kingdom and in most parts of the world, counsellor is not a protected title. So you could go and do a 2-hour course online on counselling and call yourself a counsellor. Anybody, in fact, can call themselves a counsellor. A psychologist, however, is a protected title. In the United Kingdom, you cannot call yourself a psychologist unless you have a degree in psychology that's been accredited by the British Psychological Society. And once you've completed the degree, you're eligible to join the British Psychological Society and call yourself a psychologist. And as you'll see in a minute or two, psychology has many different perspectives other than just the medical perspective, which is predominantly the perspective used in psychiatry. So I hope that gives you a bit of an outline of the difference between psychiatry, psychology, and counselling. So there are 7 real key perspectives in psychology. First of all, the psychodynamic approach. And the psychodynamic perspective emphasises the role of the unconscious mind, early childhood experiences, and interpersonal relationships to explain human behaviour, as well as to treat mental illness. And the main sort of godfather of the psychodynamic approach is Sigmund Freud, and many of you will be familiar with some of Freud working. Psychodynamic approach can be really interested in what happens in your unconscious mind. So, for example, have much interest in analysing dreams, revisiting early childhood experiences to try and explain what is going on in people's minds in the current situation. Quite a different perspective, though, is a behavioural perspective. The behavioural perspective emphasises the role of learned behaviour. It differs from the other perspectives because it focuses solely on observable behaviours rather than emphasising internal states. The behavioural approach was very much in vogue in the 1960s and 1970s, and many of you will have heard of Pavlov's dog or John Watson or Skinner. Skinner used to train rats in boxes, etc. These are all very much behavioural psychologists. And as a backlash to the psychodynamic approach, behavioural was really focusing on observed behaviours, because at that time, psychology was very much wanting to be a science, and a science had to focus on observable behaviours rather than what was happening internally. The next perspective is the cognitive perspective. The cognitive perspective emphasised the role of mental processes, for example, memory, thinking, problem solving, language, and decision making. It often uses information processing model, as does a computer, to conceptualise how information is acquired, processed, stored, and utilised. So the cognitive approach really looks at thought processes. The biological approach emphasises the role of physical and biological basis of behaviour. It's interested in the nervous system, genetics, the brain, the immune system, the endocrine system are all of interest to this perspective. So what is happening in our bodies that influences what we think or how we particularly behave? And and as I mentioned earlier, people that have psychiatrists that have come from a more medical approach will place more emphasis on the biological approach for human behaviour. Cross-cultural perspective emphasise the role of culture in human behaviour. For example, research have looked at how social behaviours differ in individualistic cultures and compared to collective cultures. I have a huge interest in cross-cultural psychology, and as Varuni has already indicated, my PhD explored how culture influences the way you learn and what you understand about learning. The evolutionary perspective emphasizes the role of natural selection in human behavior. suggesting that mental processes exist because they serve an evolutionary perspective, or they serve an evolutionary purpose, meaning that they aid in human survival and reproduction. I'm sure you're all familiar with Darwin's theory, survival of the fittest. And evolutionary perspective in psychology would argue that we behave in a certain way because it enhances our survival instinct. And probably the most recent perspective in psychology is the humanistic perspective. The humanistic perspective has been developed by Maslow, and I'm sure you may be familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and Rogers. It emphasizes the role of motivation and behavior and mental processes, focusing on what drives humans to grow, change, and develop their personal potential. So, as you can probably already see, psychology is a huge area with many, many different perspectives. And anybody studying a psychology degree will have to understand all these 7 perspectives and how that influences the way we think and behave. Most psychologists will place more emphasis in one perspective than the other, but there are very few psychologists who do not believe that human behavior is a mix of all these 7 different perspectives. So now you have an understanding of the basic key perspectives in psychology. What do psychologists actually do? If you meet somebody at a party and ask them what they do, and they say they're a nurse, a hairdresser, a business person, you've got a bit of an understanding of what they do in their day-to-day working life. When people meet me at a party and I say I'm a psychologist, either they run a mile because they think that I can read their mind and know what they're thinking, or they tell me their deepest, darkest problems expecting me to make them feel better, neither of which I am skilled enough to do. But before I go on and talk about the subfields of psychology and what psychologists actually do, what I should say at this point is a degree in psychology is a great starting point for a career in science and arts, and indeed business, as it equips you with a range of skills and opens up opportunities for a range of employers. In fact, Marks and Spencers in the United Kingdom have graduate jobs and for students when they finish their first degree. And the most popular job, or the most employable job, is they like to take people in that have a psychology degree, because anybody with a psychology degree has a basic understanding of human behavior and how people think. And there are very, very few careers where having an understanding of how people think and the way people behave is not a huge asset. So a psychology degree can open up a huge range of careers other than the subfields of psychology I'm now going to outline. Biological psychologists or neuropsychologists focus very much on research around the human brain and the human body and looking at that, how that influences behavior. Whereas developmental psychologists focus on changes that take place over the lifespan. Developmental psychologists used to be called child psychologists and focus very much on childhood. But as we have an aging population and there are many cognitive changes that take place later on in life, developmental psychology is not just focusing on the changes that take place in childhood, but also the changes that take place in later life, for example, through dementia, Alzheimer's, etc. Educational psychologists work in the education system, predominantly the school system, and they tend to help children that maybe have educational problems at school. But they also help, in the UK anyway, they also help the government and schools write the school curriculum. So at what stage should children be learning certain concepts? And as I said, also help children who have learning or have problems with learning. Social psychologists study and work with how social situations influence and change behavior. So how does, when people around you and what groups you're in and what groups you affiliate with, how does this change the way you think and the way you behave? Industrial and organizational psychologists are employed by large companies and can do many things to, for example, to help increase production, make sure that conditions in the workplace are such that productivity is increased. Clinical psychologists work with people with mental health problems or people that have some kind of psychological problems, and predominantly in the United Kingdom they work in the National Health Service, although increasingly we're seeing more private psychologists to help with people who have psychological concerns. Counselling psychologists also work with people who have psychological problems, psychological concerns, and also help people to reach their full potential, help people to self-actualise. Health psychologists, which is an area of psychology that has grown rapidly over the last 18 months, helps with health behaviour. What can the population do to prevent illness and prevent disease? What sort of behaviours should society be undertaking to increase the physical and mental well-being of a society? Cognitive psychologists are particularly interested in thought processes, looking at the way people think about things and cognitive pathways, how people can understand and perceive certain situations. Personality psychologists or individual differences psychologists look at people's different personalities and the extent to which personality is inherited and learned, and how significant life-changing events can alter personality. Forensic psychologists tend to work in the criminal justice system, and they can help work with police to help catch criminals. They look at criminal behaviour, and they also work in prisons and often write psychological reports for courts. And a very new area and a rapidly growing area is sport and exercise psychology. Most large sporting teams and sports people will all have a psychologist which will help them to perform at their absolute best. We see that at the Olympics, that the number of them, or all our key athletes, will have a psychologist, and large football teams, etc., will have a psychologist working with the team to try and enhance performance. So that gives you a rough idea of what psychologists actually do. And as you can see, it is a very large domain. To become a professional psychologist on this list in the United Kingdom, people will have a first degree in psychology and will then go on and specialise in a postgraduate degree in social psychology or organisational psychology or clinical psychology. So a general first degree in psychology and then specialise at postgraduate. So how can psychology help in a crisis? You have seen the different perspectives we take in psychology, and having an understanding of human behaviour from the different perspectives can really help us unpack human behaviour when things are challenging or we're in a crisis situation. There's a research that's taken place over the last 18 months have identified common symptoms related with the pandemic. A lot of anxiety, worry, fear, a lot of just increased stress is probably the greatest symptom that most people are suffering. And that can be, for example, working from home. I know that in Sri Lanka, as well as in the United Kingdom, offices shut all over the country, and people who'd been spent years going out to work and having a social situation out in the workplace no longer had that, had to up their technological skills and were working from home. And that's caused a huge change in people's behaviour. And a huge change in behaviour can be a very stressful situation. As well as the pandemic making people work from home, that has really interrupted family work-life balance. People went out to work and they had their work identity. They were the person that worked in such and such a company or did that. And then they came home and they were a wife, a mother, a father, a sister, a brother, a friend, and they had these different identities. And these identities were quite separate. And the physical environment helped you know how to behave and how to think in different situations. As we've all moved to the home environment, having to merge your identities, you may be working in a very important meeting, doing a webinar where there's a young child in the background wanting you to be a mother. And this has caused a huge increase for stress because of the current situation. And it has affected a lot of people's relationships. You lived in a house with a family which you probably loved dearly, but you went out to work, the children went to school, you went out and socialized and had other lives, and then came together and cemented your relationships. With the global pandemic, we've not been able to go out and have these different relationships. You are quite often, families have been together 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and that has put a huge strain on family relationships. The pandemic has certainly increased general anxiety and depression. There has been a particular increase in health anxieties. If people were pretty anxious about their health, all the awareness in the media about washing your hands, sanitizing, wearing face coverings, etc., has exacerbated health anxiety. And for many people, this has exacerbated obsessive compulsive behaviors. People who were maybe anxious before about germs and about being clean, with all the push to sanitize our hands every time we move from one place to another, has exacerbated obsessive compulsive behaviors. Another area that has been problematic for many during the pandemic is social isolation. People have not been able to go out to the shops, to go out and into the workplace, and to go and visit friends, who have been particularly isolated. And social isolation can lead to general anxiety and depression. People have also experienced a huge loss of control. Our behaviours are driven by either an internal or an external locus of control. You behave in a certain situation because you want to, it's what you want to do, and you have control over that decision. Or you may do things because you have to do them, because somebody else tells you to do them. And in a normal situation, human behaviour is driven by a balance of internal and external locus of control. Due to the global pandemic, we are being told by our governments to behave in a certain way. You must stay at home, you must not go do this, you must go and do that. And therefore, we feel a huge loss of control over our own decision-making and our own behaviour. And this has caused a number of psychological problems, the feeling of loss of control. Many people have suffered bereavement, and bereavement is not necessarily just the death of a loved one. Many of us have experienced death of family members due to the global pandemic. But the process of grieving in bereavement is just for over any loss. So the loss of being able to go out and see your friends, the loss of seeing a partner, maybe you have a relationship with somebody that lives in a different town, in a different village, in a different city, and you can't see them. So that is also a bereavement. Bereavement can be for any form of loss. And there has been a lot of loss over the last 18 months during this global pandemic. Another area is stigmatization. People who have lost family members may feel stigmatized. They are then suddenly a family without a father or a mother, a head of the family, and or they might be a family that's had a lot of COVID within their family, and other families are talking about them, and there's this stigmatization which can lead to a lot of anxiety. And we also see post-traumatic stress disorder, people that have had particularly difficult situations, nursing a sick relative or an incredible loss, will be suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Understanding or having a good understanding of the different perspectives in psychology can help unpack these feelings and emotions associated with the crisis. It can help explain how you feel a certain emotion or how you behave in a certain way. So having a clear understanding of different psychological perspectives can certainly be particularly helpful. I'm now going on to talk a little bit about what psychologists in the United Kingdom have been focusing on during COVID. Psychologists have been developing what we are calling mental health toolkits, and that is cognitive behavioural techniques. which will help people reframe events, change the way you think about something. Cognitive thought processes, so behavioral is obviously behavioral, so cognitive behavioral therapy helps you change the way you think about a certain thing or the way you behave towards a certain thing. So if you're feeling particularly anxious, cognitive behavioral techniques can be particularly helpful to help reduce anxiety. So there are a number of cognitive behavioral techniques in mental health toolkits which have been designed by psychologists to help with COVID-19. Other helpful techniques in mental health toolkits has been mindfulness. Mindfulness is all about being present and being aware of your state of mind. And instead, often people, when they become anxious, things just can escalate in their mind and it get worse and worse. And taking a step back and being mindful and being aware of the present and aware of your particular frame of mind can help reduce anxiety. As I discussed earlier on in my presentation, we have all faced huge changes in our day-to-day living over the last 18 months. And how we manage change. People naturally don't like change. It is human condition that naturally likes order and to be able to predict what is going to happen. With the huge changes that have taken place, we're no longer able to predict what's going to happen. Will you be able to meet your family that you've not seen for a long time in 4 weeks' time? Will there be another government lockdown which prevents us from moving? We don't know. And this uncertainty and anxiety, this huge change in our life, is very difficult for us to cope with. So learning how to manage change has been a very useful mental health toolkit designed by psychologists to help with the pandemic. I talked a little bit about bereavement being the loss, not just the loss of a loved one through death, but the loss of something that you have been experiencing. And according to psychologists, according to one model of psychology, there are 5 stages in the sort of grieving process for bereavement: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And by helping people understand the stages of the grieving process and how you work through these stages have been particularly helpful for people to manage any form of loss that they've experienced during the global pandemic. Another area which is really, we don't know a lot about yet, there's a lot of research going on in the United Kingdom on long COVID. And long COVID seems to have a lot of health implications that are not able to be improved through healthcare. But the biggest impact we're now finding out about long COVID is a psychological impact. People whose lives have changed because they are no longer fit enough or well enough to do the things they used to do. And this has caused a huge amount of anxiety and depression. So the psychological impact of long COVID is a research area where many psychologists, both in the institution I work in and across universities in the United Kingdom, are studying at the moment. And hopefully over the coming months, we'll see mental health toolkits to help with long COVID. And finally, one area where psychologists are working particularly hard at the moment is to help manage the stress and trauma of healthcare workers. Many healthcare workers, particularly nurses in the United Kingdom, have witnessed the most awful, almost awful forms of death in their wards. Many nurses who worked, for example, in orthopedic wards or in wards where 99% of their patients came in, perhaps with a broken leg, with a broken arm, and they got better and they left hospital. And for a certain periods over the last 18 months during this pandemic, people have gone into hospital and many of them have died. And the nursing staff have not been familiar. They are used to making people better and people leave hospital when they're better. So the stress and trauma of healthcare workers has been absolutely huge. And they've been working at 100% adrenaline, and they can only do that for a short period of time. The fight or flight reaction our body has in times of crisis can work well for a short period of time. But now we're moving into the 19th month or the 19th, 20th month of this pandemic. And this long-term working in this sort of, the fight or flight response has been particularly stressful for nurses. And nurses are suffering what we call moral injury, distressing psychological, behavioural, social, and sometimes spiritual aftermath of exposure to traumatic events. And nursing COVID patients has been particularly traumatic for many of our healthcare workers. So a number of psychologists, particularly in the National Health Service in the United Kingdom, are working on moral injury with the stress and trauma to healthcare workers. That has been a whistle-stop tour around what psychology is and how psychology can help during a global pandemic. But I now know that I'm just beyond the time I was given to talk, so hopefully that has been particularly helpful for you and you've learned something from my presentation. I'm now happy to take questions. Thank you, Varuni.
Thank you so much, Dr. Thompson, for that very interesting and very informative speech and the presentation. And I think we have a question in the meeting chat. If I'm to read that out. So there are two questions. One question being, what kind of opportunities among the opportunities that I think you have mentioned in the presentation, like clinical psychologist, health psychologist, etc., etc. So this participant wants to know what kind of opportunities are available for a psychology graduate in UK in the field of academia and health sector. So if it would be great if we could take the introduction by telling now undergraduate means the general idea, and if we are to specialize, there should be some other qualifications added as well. If we could give an idea about that specific qualifications, and after that how to enter the medical sector in UK, that would be very helpful.
Okay, so an undergraduate degree in psychology in England it is 3 years, in Scotland it is 4 years. The entry qualification for England is slightly higher, so they do 3 years because they do A levels, but in Scotland it is 4 years. The undergraduate psychology degree allows you to call yourself a psychologist, assuming your degree, your university is accredited by the British Psychological Society. And with a psychology degree, you can do I could sit from now till next week and tell you all the different jobs people go and do with a psychology degree. As I already mentioned that Marks and Spencer's is the most popular, the degree they like best for their graduates is a psychology degree. Business love people with a psychology degree because they understand the human behavior. Businesses, human resource management, there are so many different areas you can do with a psychology degree. If you want to specialize and become a particular psychologist, like a clinical psychologist, a counseling psychologist, or any particular psychologist, you need to do a master's program. In the UK, the master's programs are only 1 year if it's master's, or a 3-year top program if you want to get the doctorate. So but the undergraduate psychology degree would allow any student to understand what area of psychology they're most interested in. Because as I identified in my presentation, there are many, many subfields in psychology. And an undergraduate degree will allow somebody to think, yes, it is definitely sport and exercise I want to do, or it is definitely counselling I want to do. And then you go on and do either a 1-year master's program or a 3-year doctorate program, and then you are a specialised psychologist.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Karen. And there are some other questions coming. I think there are 2 questions that are pretty much similar. So one participant asked, what kind of measures can teachers and students possibly take to manage stress under the COVID condition? And there is another question coming as, could you please give us some helpful tips to manage stress and social isolation in students during the virtual classroom? So if we could answer both questions together.
So yes, managing stress, or what I talked about was psychology toolkits for managing stress. I am not going to give you a particular toolkit to help you manage your stress because I am not a clinical psychologist or a counselling psychologist. I know that the presenter that's immediately following me is probably much more able because she has a counselling psychology background. There are many, many websites that we have found particularly useful looking at managing stress. It depends so much on the type of stress and understanding the particular situation. What works for one person doesn't always work for another person. So there are many, many websites. If any of your participants want to just put in Google British Psychological Society Managing Stress, there is much information there they can find. I just don't want to give a particular toolkit to your participants today because I am not a clinical or counselling psychologist.
Thank you so much, Dr. Thompson. And there is one more question that would be, please, can you tell us some physical and mental damages done by stress, especially long term?
Yeah. So stress, when we go into a stressful situation, we have what is called the fight or flight response. Your adrenaline increases. Suddenly, if somebody's chasing you, you can run much faster than you can if nobody's chasing you, because you have this surge of adrenaline because you're in a stressful situation. That is good if it is a short-term stressful situation, and that our bodies are adapted through evolution to manage and to produce adrenaline to help us get away from the stressor, which is a short-term thing if you're being chased or something. However, with the pandemic, it has been a long term. This is what I was saying about the healthcare workers. They've been working with this fight or flight response for a prolonged period of time, and that can have huge negative impacts both on your psychological and your physical well-being. It can long-term stress can lead to generalized anxiety, and it can also have an effect on your immune system, making you more susceptible to picking up diseases. And it can also have effect on your general well-being. So short-term stress is our body is adapted to that to help us get away from a dangerous situation. But in a long-term prolonged stress, so why I mentioned a little bit about cognitive behavioral therapy, and that is changing our thought processes about the particular stressor. So what we perceive as something as a stressor, if we change the way we think about that stressor and it no longer becomes a stressful situation, it can then be better for our mental and physical well-being.
Yes, Dr. Thompson, thank you so much. That's so informative. I think the person who wanted to get the information, I think they had a very clear idea. And there is one question from the audience, which is very special, who thinks that he or she is in the initial stage of misophobia, because he's having two baths time or more than a day, and wash hands all the time, sanitize the things that he comes into contact and all that. So he or she is in a little difficult situation. So they want to know whether they want to seek medical advice immediately. So
And so I meant this is very common in the global pandemic. People who maybe had slight anxieties around cleanliness have been absolutely exacerbated over the last 18 months with all the media attention around sanitizing, etc. So your audience members should realize they are not alone. This is a very, very common problem. And again, some form of cognitive behavioral approach where you change your thought processes about the situation can help change behavior, thinking about it in a different way. So there are many different techniques, depending which perspective in psychology you take, of addressing certain behaviors, which can become obsessive and compulsive behaviors, intrusive thoughts and intrusive behaviors. And it can be changing the way you think about the behavior. So there are many different approaches. Again, as I'm not a qualified clinical or counselling psychologist, I won't give individual psychological advice to an audience member. But if they look up cognitive behavioural therapy or cognitive behavioural processes around cleanliness, there'll be some advice they can pick up.
Yes, Dr. Thompson, thank you so much for that very interesting presentation and the discussion. That was, I think the audience got a lot from this conversation, and most of the students, they and the participants, they got the answers as well. And our next speaker, as you said, will be able to provide further more detailed specific ones about these issues as well. So thank you so much. And I hope you will be there with us until the end, and the students and the participants, they will be able to ask more questions and get their doubts cleared. Thank
Thank you,
you.
Rooney.
And now we will move on to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Ms. Rasini Anandara. She is a very well experienced psychologist who is working as a psychologist in Mind Heals Private Limited, and she holds a master's in applied psychology from Coventry University, UK, and the BSc in psychology from Greenwich American University. Apart from working as a public speaker and personality development coach under her own brand, Learn the Art of Public Speaking or LABS, she is also a visiting faculty member of a number of private institutions as well. Then at present, Ms. Bandara is also involved in conducting workshops for school and university students and private and government sector employees in the areas such as public speaking, personality development, emotional intelligence, and all that. And also she is involved in carrying out workshops for the people who are struggling with in going through drug rehabilitation processes and also psychosocial traumas in their lives. So Ms. Bandara has a lot of experience with Sri Lankan psychological issues like stereotyping and all these related social matters and all that. And also she will be today specifically talking about the psychological issues faced by the Sri Lankans during the pandemic situation. So some of these questions you directed during the previous discussion also, I guess, Ms. Bandara will be able to provide some guidance as well. So Ms. Bandara, we are so glad to have you today, and the platform is all yours.
Thank you so much, Varuni. First of all, a big thank you to AIBS College and especially Sir Sylvester for actually kindly extending this invitation to me. And Dr. Karen, actually, it was pretty much like getting a crash course of psychology for me. I enjoyed every bit of it. And also, I think I absolutely loved the information that you shared, because a lot of people have a lot of confusions when it comes to this particular subject. Like you rightfully said, two things that they would ask whether, can you read my mind, or else like they'll tell you the deepest, darkest, problem, expecting you to find a solution at that very moment. I've been through, I've been there, done that, experienced it. And also, I think when Varuni said, explain few things about maybe the things that we as Sri Lankans, we go through, when Dr. Karen kind of explained everything, all the measures and the issues that people there in the UK that they go through. I think we would say that pretty much it's the similar situation anywhere in the world. And COVID-19, I think, has not spared any individual, to be very honest, whether, regardless of gender, regardless of age, whether you're a child, whether you're in your adolescence, whether you're in your adulthood, middle adulthood, or else, you are in your late adulthood. Still, I think every individual and their life has been impacted by this. Still, it's affecting us. And at the same time, I mostly, in many forums, I say, the repercussions of all these things, it's gonna take about another year or two for it to like really come out. So you can't expect the negative side effects of all of that to come as soon as this pandemic is over. It'll take some time because we had to actually change our lifestyle as individuals. And I will give you maybe a few things a little elaborated maybe regarding the current situation, and maybe some tips of what you can do. I mean, as being somebody who's in counseling psychology, I cannot go into so much of detail. For example, give you tips on how to come out of depression and all that, because that's the role of a clinical psychologist to deal with. But I will, help you to get that mindset of yours adjusted in order to face whatever these day-to-day issues that you get to face in life. However, I would like to start the discussion. I would like to call it a discussion in most situations, but I'm very happy that I have Dr. Karen and then Sylvester sir over here on screen, because you know we are dealing with a very difficult situation where we are not physically present. And thank you so much for the two of you for maintaining that human component for me, so that I won't feel like I'm just a lunatic talking to myself. Uh, it's very weird talking to a bunch of names. But the thing is, as soon as we bring these topics into discussion, whether it's mental health, mental well-being, psychology, we still have this negative stigma that we completely connect it to a mental asylum as individuals. So we have that the negative approach still towards this particular subject. I mean, I remember during my studies as a student, BSc, I once had to go and speak to a doctor who actually treat STDs. But the thing is, people were very comfortably seated outside the doctor's room. And as I was passing the area where you have the psychiatrist and the clinical psychologist, I could see people seated like this, right? So, taking treatments for a STD, that's more respectable than actually going into seeing a psychiatrist or a psychologist. So that's the whole perception we have towards this particular subject. I mean, I have often heard people say, when they say, I need to speak to a counselor, I need to speak to a mental health care professional, and people go, oh my God, is everything okay? Right? Or else they say, oh, you know what, they're insane, or they're going to some sort of an issue like that. But the thing is, what people need to understand is that many people think that you are insane if you decide you need help or you need to seek support. But to be very honest, you are the most sanest person because you're mindful that you have a problem. You know something is not right. You know that, you are not the person who you used to be. Maybe you are somebody who used to enjoy life a lot. Now you feel that, something is making me really feel worried and sad all the time. So something is wrong with me. I used to be a very productive individual and I'm not anymore. Right? I used to have a lot of stamina. I don't feel like that anymore. Even though I lie down on the couch from morning to night, still I feel as if I worked out in the gym for 3 to 4 hours and I have come back and lie down. So all these things. But so that's what you need to understand, that if you feel that, you have a problem, you need some sort of help or support, right? That doesn't mean that you are going insane. It means you are absolutely sane, right? But something is wrong, and then it's perfectly all right that you seek help. Now, if I ask any of you over here, all these participants, if you like to switch on your camera and be present in this moment, I would really appreciate that too. Have you ever solved a friend's problem? Right? Any family member, even your siblings, Have you had so much of wisdom to solve somebody else's problem? Oshanti, you're here with me. Have you solved any friend's problem, Oshanti? Have people come to you asking, very small, tiny, very small ones even?
Yeah, I have.
Of course, yeah. right? We are very philosophical, no? When we get to face other people's problem, we have all the solutions and everything. We throw wisdom at people like no one's business. But have you had the same wisdom when you are down with a problem?
No.
Have you gone in like, because a lot of people expect this, they think, oh, you know what, Rasini, mental health care professional must be having everything together. When she's down with this problem, she'll be going like, okay, let me psychologically analyze my problem. Right? But I always tell people, look, when I'm down with a problem, when I'm faced with a problem, the psychology I know flies out of the window. Right? And I fall into that very basic level of a human. I mean, I'll cry, I'll shut the door, I just want to be alone, right? I might just displace my anger, all that onto other people as well. It happens. It's absolutely normal. Right? It's absolutely normal for any individual. But what psychology has helped me is that the recovery process is quite, it happens very soon, right? Rather than another person, because I know when things are not right and I'm building it up, I'm building that anger or that, whole situation, all the anxiety in me, I know that I have to seek help very quickly, whether it means through a friend or maybe talking to a professional or any means like that. So this is something all of us, we need to understand. The first thing we en route to recovery is that you need to embrace the human you are first. You need to accept yourself first, and you need to accept the fact that it's all right we go through emotional struggles as individuals. Because displaying your emotions, being very vocal about your emotions, talking about your problems will not make you less of a man or else even more of a woman. I always tell this because a lot of ladies, they think, oh yeah, we are given permission to feel emotional, talk about our emotions. If you do not display your emotions and accept that sensitivity side of yours, then you're not qualified to be a woman. Right? Whereas we completely expect the opposite out of men. And it's a very sad situation why we are so hell-bent in after this topic of women empowerment. Women need strength, they need all the power in the world. We need to uplift the life of women. Whereas so many men commit suicide in this world. Right? Whereas so many men suffer from heart-related problems, type A diabetes, right? Even mental health-related problems. Like Dr. Karen said that, people always talk about and indulge in this topic of stress. It's a very normal reaction that happens in your body, right? Like she rightfully said, the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight. Earlier, hunters and gatherers, right, faced one stressful event where suddenly you're walking very nicely in the jungle and a tiger jumps from nowhere. You have to either fight or you have to run. Or there's a third option where you can pretend dead, but I don't know how credible that is actually, right? So then your body just get, uh, set up, that whole thing happen to actually fight or else to run. So you get all the energy, glucose starts secreting into your blood system, circulatory system, your blood gets pumped to the heart, all the other areas, all the other organs, digestive system, reproductive system, all the blood flow cut off, right? Pupils get dilated. So you are ready for that threatening situation. But what happens nowadays is that everything that happens to our life is a threatening situation. Even when your phone goes keek keek and you get one SMS alert, that itself is a very triggering and a very threatening situation now. So morning to night, we are experiencing stress. So I always tell people, look, stress is not something we have to go through as individuals. It's the way we perceive it. If you have a mindset that you perceive teeny weeny situations, everything as a stressful situations, of course you will go through stress from morning to night. I mean, it's an eye opener for people to think why we have a lot of digestive problems, why so many people suffer from gastritis problems and all that, why we have so many fertility clinics happening in the world and in Sri Lanka. It's because there's no circulatory system working in any of these organs. Because from morning to night, we have let our system, our sympathetic nervous system, to be activated, right? So it's the way we look at it. But if we can actually adjust this mindset of ours, I think we can pretty much work with stressful situations. I'm not saying that after listening to me tomorrow your stress will be perfectly all right, but it's always a process. And because, like I said, depression, anxiety, it's a process. It's not that today you faced a situation, tomorrow you'll end up depressed. Doesn't happen that way. I mean, I've been an individual, by the time I was 18 years of age, I lost my father. And as the only child in the family, I lost my mother's support as well. I mean, I became quite suicidal as an individual. I was very confused. All that my relatives told me was to be strong, which is not what I wanted to hear from people, right? So few tips and few things I'm going to share with y'all. I think number one, please embrace the fact that you are human, and it's absolutely fine what you're going through. Like Dr. Karen said, if you're thinking, oh my God, I'm going cuckoo because I'm washing my hands way more than I used to. I mean, very recently I went to the bank and I think I used sanitizer for about 10 or 12 times, right? If earlier I would have diagnosed myself being OCD actually, but it's perfectly all right because of the situation that we are going through. Yes, we are very hyper vigilant about uh, you know um, our health and the health of our loved ones. If you are somebody, as a habit, you wake up in the morning and you used to sneeze, right? Like you say you have a catarrh problem. Let's say Sylvester sir got a catarrh problem, and by the time he wakes up in the morning, hachus hachus hachus, it happens every day. It's very normal for his family. Nowadays it happens. And now, very recently I started sneezing and I was literally showered by sanitizer by my son and daughter. They came and they sprayed sanitizer all over me, right? So it's not just you who's going through it, even children nowadays. The the starting age of anxiety and depression is 3 years of age, right? And in Sri Lanka, we experience kids having suicidal ideations when they are sitting for their scholarship examination, right? Grade 5 scholarship, that means age 9 or 10, right? So this is quite a dangerous situation. So as individuals, as college students, right, number one thing, embrace the emotional struggles you are going through, right? Number one thing is you need to have that courage to seek support and seek help, right? And as individuals, I think at this moment, the most beautiful human quality we can develop as people, that's honestly empathy, right? So we need to be very empathetic as individuals, and I think this pandemic has absolutely given that blessing to all of us, whereas we know that it's not just you who's going through this, it's everybody, right? So you need to be having that quality going on. I mean, I know for a fact that, earlier you might have really complained about your life, saying, oh my God, I'm studying, I don't have a life, going to school, coming back, going to university, coming back. I don't have time to spend with my family. I don't have time to spend with my girlfriend. I don't have time to watch a movie from the beginning to the end. I don't even have time to read a physical book. Now you have all the time in the world to do that. Now you are realizing, oh my goodness, my freedom and my salvation was there at the university, or is there at the workplace, right? Now you are stuck with the people who you were complaining I could not spend time with them. Now you are trying to, oh my goodness, right? Especially for college students, when your mother's on your face from morning to night, that's not something easy to deal with, right? I have college students university students who are like, like my mother just complains from morning to night. Why are you not doing anything? Right? Earlier you used to see them randomly, right? In the morning, you'll hear there, all these things and complaints, but now it's more like you're facing these things from morning to night. Not just you, I have small kids complaining, saying, I think I need a vacation. I'm sick and tired of looking at mommy and daddy from morning to night. Right? I'm sure of the fact even my kids are sick and tired of me being around with them all the time. I mean, because as individuals, we are social beings. We learn so many things from the society, right? I would say I have a lot of empathy towards these little kids, because you learn sarcasm, criticism, all those things by mingling around other people, Now they have literally become just like how their parents are, to be very honest. It's not the kids who are talking, it's their parents who are talking. Right? So they are missing a massive component in their lives. So as students, you must be experiencing these kind of things. For example, lack of focus or else concentration. Now let me explain you why. Now, usually when you wake up in the morning and you put on your attire, you groom yourself, you take a shower and all that, you get ready, you're ready to go to university or to work or to school. When you get into that attire, it's more like everything is signaling your brain that, okay, you know what, I'm ready to work or I'm ready to study. You go to the university, that premises, right? You see, even if you're not motivated to study, still you see everyone around you engaging in that work, right? That gives you that reinforcement or else that motivation to pretty much engage in work. Now you wake up in the morning, you're on your bed, in your PJs, drag the laptop, keep it on your lap. How on earth there are going to be any signals going into your brain saying that you are ready to study, right? So there you go. How on earth are you going to convince your mind that, I'm here to study, and then you're in front of a screen from morning to night and you don't feel productive at all? I know this for a fact because I play the role of a student and a lecturer both, right? When I'm playing the role of a student, I even sometimes, on the bed, headphones on. Sometimes I even call my friends and say, can you like wake me up when they're marking attendance? So there you go, right? I do that. So I make sure that when I'm teaching, I get everybody onto the screen, right? Because I know for a fact that I wouldn't do it. So this is actually very, very normal. You can't expect, because you can't have interactive sessions in most case scenario. You don't see that, right? It's true that lecturers ask questions and all those things, but it's very, very limited, because you can't expect so much out of a lecturer as well. So why I said you need to build up empathy, it's because teachers need to empathize the situation of the students, and the students need to empathize the situation of lecturers, right? So that is something you need to understand and acknowledge as well. Sometimes you need to feel sorry for the lecturers who's teaching you as well, because this is not something easy for us, easy for any of us, right? And why this thing has become really difficult for us is that because we never had a smooth transition into this situation. Dr. Karen, to be very honest, in Sri Lanka, I would say the knowledge about technology is very limited among us individuals. I mean, I remember my first Zoom meeting was a complete disaster, right? And then children lack the knowledge of technology, to be very honest, and to get used to even the most minimal things and requirements, it's very tough. It takes a lot of time for that. And we were just stepping into this concept of technology slowly, and then suddenly everything is on a standstill, and then you are expected to change your perspective or change the way you are teaching and learning entirely. A lot of people struggle from it. So now only we are actually getting there as individuals, right? Now only slowly we are adopting into it as individuals. And suddenly, again, now maybe we might have to go to the normal classroom kind of a situation. So I always tell now, make sure that this won't happen very abruptly, right? This transition should be very smooth as well, because it's not going to be easy for students who've spent more, I think, close to 1.5 years in front of a screen and learning, suddenly change it to the classroom perspective, right? Because that's going to be very tough as well. So there are so many challenges in hand for all of us. So like I mentioned, okay, so number one thing, I think, for you to get that personality ready to face any of the challenges that's going to come your way, right? Number one thing, yes, have empathy, right? For you to ask someone else, how are you doing? Right? Are you okay? If you notice a difference in someone, if you notice a behavioral change in an individual, maybe some eating patterns, if you're a parent, if you notice that your children, their eating patterns are different, if you know any friend who's seeking isolation, right? Who used to enjoy things in life and not anymore. You don't need a degree in psychology to ask how you are doing, right? You just need to have a very kind heart to be very honest, to ask somebody, how are you keeping? Is everything all right with you? Right? Maybe sometimes people might not open up to you at first, but then when you keep on asking that, they might think, oh yeah, you know what? Yes, I'm not all right. Okay, you need to ask that question, give some time to those individuals as well, and it doesn't take a piece of you to tell them that, you know what, if you're going through something difficult, I'm right here with you to listen to you. Right? And you can listen to someone, and maybe at the same time building awareness. I mean, that is what we are doing through the platform I'm involved in, building the right kind of awareness, where that, you know, there are so many individuals out there who you can absolutely seek help and get support. But that also should, you should be very mindful, because, you know, sometimes you have professionals out there maybe who do not have the credibility to attend to. So that's why I think what Dr. Karen said is absolutely valuable, because you need to know about the professional that you're going to, right? Their capacity, and to what extent they are able to help you out. And also, as youngsters, you need to understand that we have a lot of labeling happening now. Earlier we had a lot of stigma regarding mental health. No one wanted to talk about it. It's a topic that says shh. But now everybody's talking about it, right? Now I see a lot of it has become a trend. Oh my god, I'm like so depressed, man. Like something so nice, it's very trendy to have. Like everybody needs to be depressed, to be accepted by the society. To be a youngster, you need to be depressed, right? And even I have seen a lot of teachers labeling also, whenever a child is a little active, or ADHD and all that. So these things need to be clinically diagnosed. Just because you are sad or going through a period of sadness doesn't mean that you are depressed. You need to match so many criterions in the DSM in order for someone or a professional to establish the fact that yes, you have a situation like this and you need professional help. So therefore, if you're going through a certain issue, make sure that you go to a right kind of professional, right? And get yourself diagnosed. Or else I think, for me, of course, like I said, my scope is very limited. I think I can deal with situations like stress and, small, let's say, relationship issues and all those things. But if it is somebody who needs, let's say, medical attention, or else who needs, further therapy and all that, I would always recommend them to go and see a clinical psychologist, or else maybe a psychiatrist, right? So that is what you need to understand. You need to have that awareness in you as an individual, and also give that right kind of awareness to others as well. Then, coming to your personality, I think number two, let's go way down to Darwin. I think Dr. Karen also mentioned evolutionary psychologists. And, where is it, where Darwin said that survival of the fittest? He said the animals who builds up adaptability for change are the ones who survive. So, yes. So, we are faced with a situation that's not normal to us. So, we need to adapt to it. I mean, it is what it is. What can you do about it? There are things that you can do about it. There are things you can't do about it also, right? So you need to learn to do what you can do, and then let go of what you cannot. At this moment, think you are asked to take all these health measures. Why? To keep yourself safe, at the same time the safety of your loved ones. So if you are asked to protect yourself, if you say that, if you go out you will die, you will not think of going out, isn't it? So you have to get to the basics, the very basics, right? So if you, for you to do everything, for you to get a psychology degree, for you to have your master's, PhD, or go to another country and practice as a professional, so you need to live, isn't it? Right? So you need to keep protect yourself. So then let's get to the very basics. So adaptability is the key. And then the best attitude to have at this moment, as students, as individuals, is gratitude. I think let's start from there. I always tell my students and clients, you know what, let's make a list. Even now we can do a list actually. You take a piece of paper, put a line down there. You have two columns. On one side, you write what I don't have. right? So you can start your complaint list. I don't have this, I don't have this. We always, as individuals, we have this habit of complaining, isn't it? So all of y'all are here. You can make this list with me right now. So make your complaint list and tell me, just jot down few and tell me how many complaints you have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. Then I will tell you about the other list. Yeah. So if the audience, if you can be present with me at this moment, right, and tell me what you feel that you do not have in this life, or what you are not given at this very moment. Now, don't write I don't have a girlfriend, because that's not like a serious social issue, but basic things, right? What you do not have. So you can just write, right? Let's make that list right now. Right? Okay, let's take a minute or two. Varun, even you can do it, right?
Sure. So all of you can use your meeting chats.
Yeah. So please share how many let's say complaints you have. If you can type on the chat box, and share it, would really appreciate it. Maybe 1, 2, 3, 4. You can go on, think about all the things that you would complain at this very moment. About 3 main complaints. Okay, good. So someone sent me a direct message saying about 3. Okay, so no free time. Okay, so let's take it as 1. Okay, right. Anyone else would like to share how many complaints you have about life? You can mention 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. There are quite a number of things coming to my mind. Okay. So right. So let's. All right. Okay. So I have getting mixed kind of responses. However, nice. Okay. So some having sibling issues. Okay. Very common problem. Okay. Okay. So yes. So quite
common problem early.
I have a lot of direct messages also coming, so I won't be sharing those. But yeah. All right. Okay. Okay. So please, I mean, keep on writing. This is absolutely good. Okay. So now I'm gonna write with you what we have. So you can write, the next column should be what I have. Okay. So that's what we are gonna write. Varuni, are you somebody who says thank you often? You said thank you a couple of times to me and Dr. Karen also. You say thank you all the time. So when was the last time you said thank you? Was it to us?
Yeah, just now, I guess.
All right. Okay. So I have one more question. One question to ask from you. When was the last time you said thank you to your heart?
Today, this
Today.
morning.
This morning, as you woke up.
As I woke up, and when I had the feeling that okay, I'm going to get a new experience today, and I felt like okay, this is a good day to me. Thank you for keeping me alive.
Fantastic. So beautiful start. Honestly, actually, we say thank you to a lot of people around us from morning to night, whether it's to your husband, to your kids, like to your teachers and everyone, facilitators, all of these, people who gives you gifts and all that, wishes you happy birthday for your birthday. But the thing is, something that we forget is that to be absolutely grateful and say thank you to the heart. Now, me being a 37-year-old, if my heart thought, what, I'm done and dust beating for this woman, well, I let me take like a 5-minute break, it's game over for me, isn't it? So from the day you're born, it's still beating for you 24/7. I think that is one hell of a reason for you to say thank you, right? So I think we can start from that. So you can start your list by being absolutely grateful, right? To the fact that you still have a beating heart at this moment. We have no idea what's going to happen next moment, right? Or else tomorrow. Because a lot of people who were breathing, living and breathing yesterday are not doing that today, right? And we have no assurance of tomorrow as individuals, but we can be absolutely appreciative of this very moment, right? That is one thing. Number two, right, I'll mention few things. Number two, if you all can take a deep breath, like something like that, you have perfectly functioning lungs at this moment, whereas so many individuals are going through life support, right, and ventilators to actually breathe. Few weeks, months back, we saw the struggle India went through, and the people of India, right, ready to give anything that they have for a little bit of oxygen, right, for few moments, few minutes. So looking at situations like that, I think we can be absolutely grateful that this thing, both of these things, perfectly functioning at this very moment, right? From there, I would say, like I said, I'm a 37-year-old. Imagine I had a brain capacity or else the brain function of a 10-year-old, right? If I was going through a retardation, how would your life be? And there are so many individuals like this who's going through global development delay and all those issues. Imagine, so you have a perfectly functioning one right over here, right, that's doing all this control, right? Therefore, that is something to be absolutely grateful of, right? Then coming from there, your eyes, your nose, your mouth, and your ears. Sylvester sir, remember we did a blind walk from Rotary Road Tract, and I actually went in that blind walk having my sister-in-law in my mind. 38 years of her age, she saw this world through her eyes, went into permanent blindness due to a brain tumor surgery. She now touches her kids and tries to figure out whether they have grown taller or bigger. Seeing her every day, it overwhelms me as a person. And when I took that walk in blindfolds, I think it really overwhelmed me as a person. And I cannot be so grateful for life, right? That I can see this world through my eyes, to be very, very honest, right? So other than that, your hands and your legs, right, and maybe all the other organs inside your body, maybe there are few issues here and there, you'll never know until you do tests and all that, maybe cholesterol is high, who knows it, but still at this moment it's functioning, right? If you have been to Apeksha Hospital, the cancer hospital, that's hell on earth. So if you're not going through a chronic illness like that in life, right, that you're counting days for death, yes, that is something good enough to be really, really grateful of. Having all that aside, let's say, right, I think for you, you have a roof above your head. You must be having so many issues at home. Your parents must be fighting like cats and dogs, right? And then your house must be really small, or else, let's say, there are a few leaks from here and there, whenever there's big rain, water dripping from few places, you are not very happy with the plumbing system, right? You're not very happy with the color, right, they have painted, but however, you have a roof above your head. Just imagine, few weeks, months back, in the Gaza Strip, people have built houses, right, with their blood, sweat, and tears, and then all flattened to the ground to rubble, right? Imagine you still have a roof above your head, something to be grateful of, right? And then, to be very honest, let's say you must be having a lot of complaints about food, right? Oh God, I cannot Uber eat. I can't go out to a restaurant and eat comfortably. I'm sick and tired of my mom's cooking. I eat Maggie noodles morning, afternoon, at night also, right? But still, there's some food on your table. There are so many kids actually ask for medication to not to feel hungry. You must be having all complaints about education, but still you are given education. How many individuals are deprived of education, right? How many kids cannot actually get education in this world? So if you kind of make a list like that, yes, maybe you're complaining and going to college, but still you're going to college, isn't it? How many people are not given the opportunity to go into higher education? Right? So when you kind of make a list like that, I'm sure that we have about 10 or more, Varuni, at this moment, right? And if you allocate each and every body part, I think there you go. You have even a bigger list. So
Yes.
when you have a list of complaints you have, right, as an individual, then of course, yes, you have the next list to do and see. Because I also do this, because I also get this habit on and off of, oh my God, like I'm, what do I have is something that we kind of think of, and then quickly take a small piece of paper, write this down and see, and then I think you'll find enough and more reasons to be appreciative at this very moment. Right? That is, I think, um, getting that right kind of personality to face these situations in this life, having the absolute beautiful attitude you can have as a person, which is gratitude. That's never going to disappoint you as an individual, right? So I, like I said that, okay, I'm going to tell you a few tips, right? I'm going to tell you a few basic human tips, not pretty much I would say psychological and all those things, right? I'll speak to the basic human heart. So yes, Sakun has said, how about regrets? Fantastic question. Now we as individuals have this beautiful habit of worrying about things that we did in the past. And I would like to ask you, we worry too much. We worry all the time. Why did I do that? Why did I pick this subject? Why did I ask her out? Why did I get married? That will come later on into your lives, right? Okay. Why did I decide to have children, right? When they're going all gaga, boo boo, and crazy. But then, can you do anything about it? Can you change those decisions? If you have a time machine, you can go back and do that. But what people fail to understand is that, maybe you have made certain decisions in life, and at that moment that was the best decision you took, right? For example, let's say I mentioned that I'm 37 years of age. This Rasini who was 27 years is not the Rasini that exists now. I have grown as an individual. Every day you add on to your life, you add wisdom to your life. The decision that I made yesterday will not be the same decision that I'll make today, maybe regarding the same situation, right? So that is something you need to understand. So excessively worrying about what you did, right, in life, that's not going to help you, right? You can't do anything about it. You can't change it, right? And then the other beautiful habit that we have is that we are fearful about the future. What if, oh my God, I don't want to go and tell this to my teacher, because what if she thinks bad of me, and then she's going to go like this to me all the time, right? So I don't want to go and ask her out, because she's definitely going to say no to me. I'm definitely going to fail this assignment or this examination. You're fearful of something that you never experienced as someone. So building up fear, is that going to help you? No. What we fail to understand is the beauty of this moment. So that is why, if you have seen Kung Fu Panda, Master Uruguay, the turtle with wisdom, he says, yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, today is a gift. That's why it's called present. And I say this whenever I find. So at this moment, you have all the power, everything in your capacity to make a difference, take a choice, be bold and make a decision, right? Do something for yourself, right? Do some changes in your lifestyle. Do those things that you want to do this moment, right? Once this moment is gone, it's history, right? And then yes, you do another thing. And do you think that people who have reached to great heights in life have not made mistakes and errors and all those things in life? Do you know their stories? Right? All people who have reached to great heights in life have at least faced some sort of difficulty at some point in their life. If I even ask Dr. Karen, if you look back at your journey, I think it's never the destination that makes you who you are. It's always your journey. So embrace that journey, right? I myself, as an Hindu, I failed my A-level examination. I got 3 Fs, right? If I limited myself as an individual at that time, I wouldn't be here giving you all these things. You won't give me that credibility to invite me over here. And I have met like people like that way all throughout my life. who have never limited themselves as individuals. So that's what matters, honestly. Look at life and all the challenges, even this pandemic, whether your issue is boredom or frustration. Look at this life as, that all these challenges that's coming your way, it's not coming to pull you back in life, but in order to launch you onto a different individual, right? You're learning without knowing, without acknowledging, you're learning, right? Every challenge gives you that learning experience. At this moment, I remember this particular scene from this movie called Evan Almighty. And God, in the form of Morgan Freeman, comes and asks Evans's wife, if God wanted to give you courage, would God give you courage or an opportunity to develop courage? Right? Would God give you courage on a silver platter? Whatever the belief system that you have, whether it's God, whether it's higher power, whether it's Allah Almighty, right? Would not give you anything on a silver platter, but will put you in a situation to actually build up something in you, right? So that's learning. So learn to look at life in that way, right? And someday you can narrate all these stories. I mean, let's say this pandemic has done nothing to you. At least you'll have a story to narrate to your children, right? I still narrate the story of war and what we've experienced during the war to my children. I get by with that all the time. During my time as a school, it was not easy. Bombs were going here and there in Sri Lanka, but at least you'll have a story to tell your kids. We were stuck at home, right? Couldn't go out. So learn to embrace it in that way, right? Learn to embrace it. Yes, tough situations will come in the future as well. Challenges, maybe, like I said, tomorrow you'll have another entirely new normal, right? And maybe days and years to come, it'll be completely different. I mean, those who answered the question in 2016, where do you see yourself in 5 years from now on? Did you imagine to go through a pandemic, right? So life is so fragile like that. That is why life is so beautiful. But you have the absolute capacity of taking this as a challenge and making it into something amazing. You come out of this, right, in whatever the way. That is why I say, so to come out, yes, embrace your struggles, seek for help, right? Look for support. If you look for it, you'll find it. It's not going to help you. You indulge in the problem. But if you get the courage to actually seek for support, seek help, right, you will absolutely find it. And that is what I have been in trouble. I have sought help. I still seek help. So a professional is telling you this. I think Dr. Karen would agree with me. We are also human at the end of the day. She must be having a PhD, a doctorate with her, but she's also human, isn't it? You can't be going like, oh yeah, she got everything taken care. She's not a superhero. None of us are. No parents, nobody, right? So even I would say, if any parents are listening here, be very vocal about even your struggles. You need to show your kids that you're no superhero here, right? Have the transparency going. Have conversations. This is another thing that we lack, Varuni, to be very honest. We lack conversations. Nowadays, we are in this digital era. We are very high tech, but very less touch. We don't communicate about our issues or problems, right? Girlfriend and boyfriend, they don't talk to each other. They stalk each other all the way through midnight, never say hi and hello. Because I deal with relationships issues, I know that, right? They come and say, this man was online from morning till morning. And the man says even she was online, but none of them have taken the initiative of saying hi to each other, right? So you need more conversations. You need more conversations as humans. You need more conversations as parents and children. You need to have more conversations with people. Even if you are struggling, tell your parents, I am struggling. I need to find help. Look, you need to support me. You need to help me. You can't be living in this perception, my parents will never understand me. How are you going to know that without communicating that to them? That is why I say fear of what might happen, it's killing you as an individual. Worrying of what you did is again killing you, right? None of these things are ever going to help you. So these are some of the things that you can adopt as individuals, right? Things that I personally practice as a person, as a human, even as a professional, right, to get through with the situation what we are going through, right? So there is a very beautiful practice in Japan. Whenever there is something of importance, let's say a bowl or a mug or something that you really value, something made out of glass or whatever, when it breaks, they don't just throw the pieces away. They put the pieces together. Still, it looks really ugly, isn't it? Because you have, glued it together. It looks really bad. Then what they do is they paint those cracks in gold, emphasizing that something which is once very ugly, right, can be turned into something beautiful. Same situation to humans. If you've been broken, that doesn't mean that you are broken beyond repair. You can turn your life into something absolutely beautiful. I've been a broken individual in life, right? Still, every day is a challenge, I would say. Every day is a challenge. Every day I face challenges as a mother to get everything together, right? To sit down. Sometimes you might never understand that we have a turbulence going in our mindset, and we have to sit and preach people how to take care of your mental well-being. It's not an easy situation to deal, right? So we have sleepless nights, right? Sometimes health issues. Sylvester so always complain. Look, Rasin, before you tell other people to sleep, you have to sleep first, right? So yes, we all have these issues as individuals. But what you fail to understand, you think you have problems because other people, you don't see their story, right? So these things are some of the things that you as individuals should understand. And I would like to recommend a book for all these amazing youngsters to read. It's Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. He says, don't look for peace in life. You're never going to get it, right? But look for a purpose. And also what you need to understand is, as individuals, from smaller days, we are preparing to live, right? You are in the preparation to live. You think you have to go to school. Yes, that's a must because you have to live. Then you go to university. That's not enough to live, right? You need to find a job. Then that's also not enough. You need to, you have to climb the ladder. So then you have to get qualifications and all that. You need to do your MBA and all those things. And you build all that up. Then not enough. Why? The society comes right at your biological clock is ticking. You need to get married. Otherwise, you are not a complete individual, right? You get married also, right? Then again, all your aunts and uncles, everyone, oh my God, without becoming a mother, you're not a complete woman, right? Then you become a mother, you raise your kids, and you're thinking, by the time I'm 50 years of age, I'm gonna, build a house, get a car, all those things, settle my kids off for a little bit, and then I'm gonna live my life. And you die when you're 40 years of age. You have never lived. You have constantly been in the process of trying to live, right? So every day before you go to bed, take a journal, write one thing that brought a smile to your face. It's a very beautiful practice to have. I even get my kids to do it also. One thing that brought a smile to your face. Think about, yes, you might have had the most shittiest day, right? But there could have been one thing that just made you smile, right? One thing, one little factor. At least if your teacher did not attend a Zoom class, right? Today, yes, 3 hours of freedom, right? And it brought a smile to you, right? Later on, she might do a 6-hour class, which might just, torment you for life. But still, at least something, at least if you tried your favorite flavor of ice cream, right? Good enough reason to smile. Celebrate little things in your life. Do not wait till graduation to celebrate. Even, passing a quiz from border, that's enough, right? At least you got 5 out of 10, where it's like the pass mark. Good enough reason, right? Very little things. If you were able to listen to somebody who's going through a problem, wonderful reason to smile for that day, right? You ease someone's pain, right? So at a time where we are hell-bent in after things like women empowerment, what we should be after is empowering humanity. So I think COVID-19 has actually given that absolute understanding to all of us individuals. If you do not learn empathy in this situation, you will never learn empathy, to be very honest. So have these characteristics going in your life, right? Embrace this situation as humanely as possible, right? Uplift that humanity in you, which you'll be able to uplift that humanity in others as well. seek the right kind of help and support, help others to seek that as well, right? Build up that build up that environment, because if you take care of your mental well-being, that means it's a chain reaction. All the people around you will be benefited out of that. That is something you need to understand. For example, if Sylvester Sir is my boss, right, and if he's having a bad day, that's going to affect my well-being also, right? And my if I let that affect my well-being, that's going to affect the well-being of the people who's connected to my life as well. So you need to prioritize mental health. Just like you keep washing your hands all the time, you need to pretty much sanitize your attitude and your mentality also, right? So these things are absolutely important. So wishing all of you all the very best. As students, this, you're spending the most beautiful time in your life, believe me, right? You must be having this reaction at this moment when I say that you are spending the most beautiful time. Yes, wait till you get to the real society out there. Oh my goodness, right? It's not going to be easy. That's a whole PhD itself, right? So embrace it, enjoy it, learn it when you're given the opportunity, right? And I think we, all of us, we have the capacity as individuals to make ourselves, much, much, much more worthier than you absolutely think, right? So telling this, but it's a process. Every day it should be that. So one thing you need to understand, focus on the purpose, never on peace, right? And life will absolutely happen for you. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Karen. Thank you, Sylvester Sir. Everyone else, thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Ms. Bandara, for that very, very interesting, very valuable speech, and a lot of experience shared, and a lot of technology techniques taught. I think a whole lot of cognitive behavioral therapy session was carried out. For me, it was like that. So I think there are like little to no questions in the meeting chat, I guess, because most of the questions the participants had the next time you answered the question. Because I had some questions and the next few minutes I got the answer. That might have been the reason. So it's very interesting, and I hope most of these questions related to the issues associated with these lifestyle problems you have already answered. So I hope all of them got the correct answers from your entire speech when they got the answers. So that, I guess, brings our webinar towards the end. So we had a very wonderful evening together, a lot of valuable information shared, a lot of valuable techniques taught, and a lot of valuable concepts also we learned. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank our resource personals, Dr. Thompson and Ms. Bandara, for sharing your very, very valuable experience with us, taking some time out of your tight schedules to join with us today and give these participants a broad idea about what psychology is, and then to streamline their knowledge about how to address their daily life experiences, their stresses, and their daily life issues, if I may say. So thank you very much once again for being with us today. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank our Director CEO, Mr. Hirandi Silva, and Ms. Osanti Vatavana, our Chief Operating Officer, and Mr. Sylvester, Head of Marketing and Business Development, and all the others who played a very significant role behind the curtain to make this very, very interesting event a significant success. So finally, I would like to thank our wonderful audience who were really interactive and had a lot of different experiences shared with us. So thank you so much for taking out some time, from your day, to sit with us and have an interesting discussion about mental well-being. And I hope you all got something that is lifelong during this few hours time. So um, basically, I think the marketing team will be keep in touch with you to address any questions or any queries that you have. And coming towards the end, I would like to mention something that is said by a famous author, Arena Huffleton. As she said, if you take care of your mind, you take care of the world. So I think we gave you some information that will help you to take care of your mind, and by doing that, I invite you to take care of the world, which is the most precious thing we have at the moment. So have a very good evening, have a very good night. Stay safe, all of you. Thank you so much for joining our event. Everyone, thank you so much and have a good day.